It's a beautiful morning for a motorcycle ride.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful morning for a motorcycle ride to escort the moving wall.
Yeah.
Give everyone a round of applause, please. Quite a sight coming up the road. Thank you. My name is Carmen Alio. I'm the Vice President of Marketing of Visit Mercer County, PA. And I was asked to come here and give you a little bit of history of the Avenue of 444 Flags and the War on Terror Veterans Memorial, where you are located currently. So I first became aware of the Avenue of 444 Flags in the late 80s. I was in high school, and actually directly across the street from here where we are today, there used to be a Wendy's fast food restaurant. And I was in wrestling, and I was starving one day after wrestling practice. Many of you may know that feeling. And I went to the drive-thru to get a pickup order, and I glanced across the street, and the avenue was dropped to half-mast. And that was dropped to half-mast for the Challenger disaster in the late 80s. This avenue actually started almost a decade before that. On November 4th, 1979, a group of some 5,000 militants, students, and their professors overran the American embassy in the country of Iran, taking the embassy along with 66 American hostages. So as the days and weeks and months of that hostage crisis dragged on, Americans began to protest. They began to tie yellow ribbons around trees. They began to send postcards and write letters to their local and state representatives trying to bring an end to the hostage crisis. And Mr. Thomas Flynn, who owned this cemetery at that time in 1979, he had two small children, and they couldn't quite visualize how long this crisis was going on. So with the help of some unemployed steelworkers in the valley, on day 100 of the crisis, they rose 100 temporary American flags, basically directly right behind you on the beginning part of the avenue where you pulled in. On that evening of the 100th day of the crisis, one of the family members came to the avenue. The Matrenko family came to the avenue, and they didn't know if their son Michael was still alive or if they would ever see him again. And Mr. Flynn made a commitment to the Matrenko family, and he stated he would raise one flag a day until their son was released, and that's what he set out to do. So, as we all know, there are 444 flags. The 444 flags mark days. So 444 days of captivity during the Iranian hostage crisis. The flags you see today are the largest display of American flags flying anywhere in the world continuously. They fly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are lit at night. During the time of national mourning, if the President of the United States declares a state of national mourning, the avenue is dropped to half-mast. It takes two gentlemen and a bucket truck a day and a half to drop the entire avenue. The flags are currently made out of nylon, so they last roughly 7 months. But in 1979, they were made out of cotton, and they only lasted 3 months. The last time I spoke to Mr. Flynn, he stated that they rose over 20,000 American flags at the avenue here. And you can see they are in pristine condition. And we'd like to thank our new owner, Ted Hawes, actually for that as well. So he's taken over. What you see in back of you here, so we have the Avenue of 444 Flags, and then we also have the War on Terror Veterans Memorial. The War on Terror Veterans Memorial lists the names of every single American serviceman and woman who has lost their life since 1975 through present year. They are listed in chronological order, so they start on this plaque right here, and they go from 1975 and around back to this plaque right in front of that plaque. You'll have a chance to go see that as well. You'll see a beginning date and an end date on each plaque. That is the range of the unfortunate passing of all the names that are on that. So the first plaque will say 75 and 83, so that's the range. And then it's 83, 83, 83, 83. Obviously, when the war started, you'll see a lot of names, unfortunately, as they go around. At this time, I would like to invite the new owner of the Avenue of 444 Flags and War on Terror Veterans Memorial to come up, Mr. Ted Hawes.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. This is a true honor to be here. A couple things Carmen forgot to mention. The American flags. We reflagged the place here, and they are 100% American-made American flags. Okay, and to try at this day and age, with all the inventory shortages, to find 500 American-made American flags is tough, but we got it done. Okay, so and another thing, just a little bit of trivia: we have 444 flags. We have one Canadian flag because there was one Canadian hostage. So whenever you see the Canadian flag, that was meant to be there. It's here. You have to look for it. It's flagpole 89 if you're interested. At this time, while we're here to honor those killed in Vietnam with the moving wall, it's also important that we don't forget them, but that we don't forget others who have suffered losses as well. At this time, I'd like to call up Tammy Mclaughlin, Al Marzano. Is Mr. Viverick here?
Viverka.
Huh?
Viverka.
Viverka. Ron Viverka?
I hadn't seen him.
Okay. Both Tammy and Al, they've lost loved ones in this war too. And we want to honor them here today as well. If you could, just step up. Tell me who you are, who you lost.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. So I'm Tammy Mclaughlin. I work with Brad at Veterans Affairs. On January 5th of 2006, I lost my husband in Iraq. He was doing a police recruitment in Hermitage, and he was struck by a suicide bomber's shrapnel who detonated, and another young man from Florida was also killed that day with his dog. So, you know, in the 16 years that it's been, it's hard. It's still fresh, especially days like this. But I am also very blessed because of that situation. Where I am today is being able to work with the Veterans Affairs Office and assist all of our veterans. And that's very rewarding for me because it was all done for me and walked through with me during the time that I went through things. So I want to thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hawes. Thank you, Brad, for doing this today. It means a whole lot. Sheldon. That's my guy right there.
Hey, come on, give it up!
Good morning. I'm Al Marzano. My son was killed May 7th, 2005. Actually, his picture is right there on this flagpole. He got out of his Humvee to do heading towards the hospital. It was being taken over, and a suicide bomber hit the hospital, and he was killed in that incident. And it never goes away. It's a daily thing. It's been 17 years, but it doesn't seem like yesterday sometimes. And I appreciate this, Gunny, and really, everyone here. And it's always good to keep him remembered, because you die once when you're actually killed, and you die forever when your name is never mentioned again, and people forget. So it's always great for people to keep that in mind. And all these men that are on the floor, on the wall, from no matter where they're from, they had families, friends, and it's a big loss for everyone. So thank you.
Stand over here. There's another gentleman that was supposed to be here that he couldn't make it, Mr. Dave Gettings. His son, Albert Gettings, is on the wall as well. Dave's experienced some health issues, and he texted me this morning. His son was killed in a Humvee on his way to the airport to come home. And his Humvee came under attack, and he got out of his Humvee to help one of his buddies, and he was shot. So it's a real tragedy there. Anyhow, Al, Tammy, obviously the nation is grateful for what your loved ones have done. But I think it's important for you to know that everyone here has you in their thoughts and prayers as you deal with the loss of your loved ones. I would ask that you take the white rose and go over and stand next to the wall where your husband's name is. And gentlemen, if you want to walk over and say hi to them, please do. This will conclude our services here today. Everyone have a safe trip home, and thank you for coming.